Hello and welcome to a Wicked Parley. I'm your host, Justin, and my fellow co-host, the lovely Rose. You know, today is one of those days where it just kind of feels like, what the fuck's going on? And nothing...
Every day of my gosh darn existence, thank you very much.
And nothing exemplifies this more than a look at the academic situation that many people face. And today's episode, while is going to be discussing education, we are going to be primarily looking at the college education experience in North America. So for all you guys who are not in North America, I'm sorry, but this is going to be an interesting look at these particular groups. So maybe, be happy that if it's different here. But before we get into all of that, we got a new month means a new Wheel of Challenge.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh God, Rose. All right, so Rose is going to, of course, pick one of these challenges. Now, each of these particular challenges have a specific set of caveats that I will explain afterwards. And if you're wondering what happened to last month's challenge, guess what? We're going to air that later on next week. So if you're interested in finding out exactly what happened with the Wheel of Challenge, you'll have to go check out that particular episode. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see what caveats we have to explain.
I don't want to, but okay.
Let's just hope it's not cold showers. All right, we can't go from hot to cold showers. You can't do that. You can't do it. No! Oh my God. Oh my God.
I wanted this to be in March, not gonna lie. I'm not going to be able to hang out with my friends at all.
Oh my God.
I legitimately can't, because it's if I'm going to stick with this, I have to go to bed at 10. But every single one of my friends gets online at 10.
Well, maybe your friends will accommodate you.
I doubt it.
Oh my God.
Because it's I don't stop working on stuff until 9.
Yeah.
And most of the time, I can't even actually stop at 9. It goes until 9:30.
Well, who knows? Maybe some of your friends will be up at 4.
I doubt that too.
All right. Well,
I only have one that would potentially wake up early, and she's one of my school friends, not one of my online friends.
Yeah. Well, okay. So here's the deal with the 4 a.m. wake up call. Oh boy, indeed. So basically, you can go to sleep whenever the fuck you want, okay? But everyone has to wake up at 4 a.m. So if you're taking this challenge with us and would like to do that, your goal is to wake up at 4 a.m. And should you take a nap throughout the day, no one's going to fault you for that. You just have to make sure that you go to sleep sometime before 4 a.m. and then wake up at 4 a.m. Oh my God. Hey, you know what the upside is? This will give me the opportunity to work out like The Rock. Motherfucker wakes up around this time.
I think I might just straight up switch my gaming hours.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
I really wanted this to be in March.
Yeah, this is going to truly 100% suck ass. There
was only 2 weeks I wanted it to be in March, because there's no way in heck I'm going to try and wake up my dad at 4 in the morning when I go back for spring break.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah.
Okay. Not a chance.
I'd rather not wake up my dad.
Yeah, that would be bad. Yeah, that'd be really bad. Okay, all right. So, so 4 a.m. We're gonna talk about this next month. What a great time for this. God, I just love it. Just freaking love it. Oh man!
I'm just gonna update it here.
Yeah.
Cry about it.
Everyone can see how we update now. All right. Well then.
Can I cry about it yet? I know it's only been 2 seconds, but can I cry about it yet?
No, you can't cry about it. No.
Damn.
4 a.m. Oh my God! It's gonna be a whole hour early. Ah, God damn it.
You're gonna have to deal with my cranky butt.
Yeah, it's not gonna be good.
No, because I don't get up until 8, maybe 9 on a regular basis.
Oh God,
You're gonna have to deal with me.
Okay, all right, I'll deal with you, I guess. I mean, that seems terrible, but all right.
You're gonna have to deal with a very angry girl.
Yeah, I get that. This is gonna be...
Okay. before I get too angry about it, shall we go into the next topic?
You know, Hustle, I'm gonna say one thing though, okay?
Okay.
For the sake of sanity, that begins tomorrow. Like,
Okay, so tomorrow night.
yeah, tomorrow night. No, like we're not. It's not gonna
So
be
tomorrow
tonight.
is the last normal wake up time.
There you go. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That way it's fair.
Okay.
That way you communication can
It's like,
happen.
hey, I'm about to do something stupid.
I'm about to do something real stupid.
Just tells my friend, I'm about to do something real stupid. So if you're gonna see me, either wake up hecka early or get on just like an hour or two earlier. Just letting you know that now.
Yeah, at least some of your students will be getting extremely early emails. Oh man.
Not gonna lie, I have sent this schedule send feature to be at like 8 in the morning anyway.
Okay, all right. Well, so it doesn't matter then. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into the episode today. Okay.
Woo!
So we're going to talk about like things in education, academia, and whatnot. And honestly, this list of things is kind of like a list of things that kind of just pisses me off. And yeah, so we're just going to jump right into it. Now, the first topic at hand is, of course, the enforcement in the use of pronouns. What does this mean? What does this actually mean? What it means is that if you were to go to a college campus and you introduce yourself on the first day of the whole class, they're going to be like, what are your pronouns? What's your name? And then something else. It happens frequently.
A lot.
Now,
especially in modern times. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can tell you about my email situation.
Oh, God. Well, let's hear about that in a second. Look, ultimately, there's a lot of things that we could talk about when it comes to this. The reason why I bring this up in the first place is because I want to at least give the opportunity to acknowledge the problems in this. So many people want to jump on board and be like, pronouns are great. You're giving the people the opportunity to express themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that necessarily. I think you are, but you're also doing two things simultaneously. One, you're alienating an entire group, and you're also painting a target on an entire group. And I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing either way. I also have some serious issues with the idea of being forced to acknowledge pronouns like that. Because while no one's holding a gun to your head and saying you have to use it, it sets a tone and a precedent for the entire semester if you object. Right? If you act like an asshole, there's going to be people who are going to instantly become less happy with you, we'll say. And then the other thing is that, like, it's like, okay, do I really give a shit about what you identify as and who you'd like to sleep with? Because whether people like it or not, pronouns are used to basically refer to sexual preference more than they're not. It's not necessarily the case all the time, but it very easily crosses that line. And I think in the minds of a lot of people that I've talked to, I get this strong opinion that that is what they think of when they talk about pronouns. They're like, oh, this person is trans, this person is straight, this person, is questioning, like whatever it is, right? Like the fact of the matter is that it basically creates a situation where there's a conversation that might get opened up that people wouldn't necessarily want to get opened up, and as such, they don't do anything about it. To stop that, it's like an open door. And I feel like that is a problem, especially in an academic setting, because in an academic setting, you should 100% be being able to push back against things. There needs to be the ability to offend and also be able to challenge ideas. And in an area where pronouns are being forced, it also creates the idea of a safe space, which alienates opportunities for learning and growth in a way that is going to be stimulating and memorable. But given all of that umbrella stuff, which we're going to go into a little bit deeper, I'd like to hear what's your 2 cents when it comes to this particular subject.
All right. I have a slightly different experience. The whole email thing it's just kind of funny to me that they're enforcing it in such a way.
Uh-huh.
So you know how for school emails, they'll typically have, your full name so that your fellow students and faculty can, contact you for anything, whether this be questions if you're a tutor or a TA, blah, 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 blah.
Uh-huh.
They have now started attaching pronouns into those titles.
I've seen that. Yeah, it's in a lot
Yeah.
of the emails I've seen as well.
Yeah, so it's just like, I never added those myself. They've just been added for me. And I'm like, Okay, this is the thing. Just, okay. So it's just like, I don't really care because I personally just can get referred to by anything and I'm not really easily offended by that. But that's just me, obviously.
Uh-huh.
So for me, the whole use of pronouns and stuff, I don't feel as strongly as you do, but I do agree that it's kind of a double-edged sword. Because let's say you were kind of under the radar because of how you present
Mm-hmm.
to the public in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you identify as something that actually goes against that quote presentation. That kind of brings attention to you when you might not have been easily targeted before by like anybody who happens to, discriminate or is hateful toward that particular demographic. It kind of makes it easier to not only be found by people who discriminate against that group. Like, yeah, you get to find people who identify this in a similar way as you, for reinforcement, for solidarity,
Mm-hmm.
but it also makes it easier for people to find you who don't feel the same way.
That is very true. It's kind of like I was talking about with the whole idea of painting a target on their back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like,
So it's just like that's the one thing we definitely agree with. It does paint targets, and not all those targets are good ones.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, if I saw an email, it says, it's like Justin, and it just basically like the pronouns be bear, bears, bears. I'm like, it's fine.
I saw a funny clip that I should have saved,
Oh
but
no.
I'll tell you after.
Okay.
It is funny. But yeah, it's just like I can also kind of agree it does kind of separate people because
Mm-hmm.
you're always going to have groups of people and those groups of people do contain, people who are accepting of not only the group but of others outside of that group. And then you're going to have the people who don't agree with anybody outside of the group,
Mm-hmm.
which will encourage the, you know, discontent or whatever problems may be occurring between groups rather than bringing people together.
Makes sense.
It's just I hate always relying on this, but it always just like it depends on the people involved because it's like either you will get the nice people
Mm-hmm.
who are accepting of whatever the heck's going on and don't give a crap either way, versus the people who will take it to an extreme and will make things miserable for somebody.
Right.
It doesn't even have to be outside of the group. It could be just making it miserable for inside the group.
That's fair. That's very fair. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, like, I think it's like when you see pronouns, it almost feels
Mm-hmm.
like people are wanting a special treatment. Like they want to be acknowledged that they are different in some way. And like I feel like if you want to be acknowledged as being different, then do something that's worth being acknowledged. Don't be like I'm pronouncing that I am X, Y, and Z. Be something, do something of merit, and then deserve the actual recognition and attention you're getting. I mean, deciding that like, hey, I identify this way. This is the type of person I'm with. Whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful like ability, and I'm glad that you have that you are afforded that particular representation. But I also think that it flies in the face of everyone else who doesn't give a shit. I'm just like I'm done. I mean, honestly, in my mind, I'm done. Like I actively will rebel against any of these things forever
Goodness.
because of this. So like you have let's put it this way: people who are propagating the usage of pronouns know that you've created me. You've created my sentiment, at least when it comes to this, because of the way in which it has been enacted. So I don't know.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next topic. The
Sure.
next topic is, of course, the one thing that everyone can agree on, We pay way too much fucking money for school. All right? The cost of education. I mean, Jesus Christ, is shit fucking expensive. One of the things that I know we've talked about this subject before, and I know you guys all know the numbers for this thing, but I think that like
too high.
While we talked about the numbers, we didn't really have a conversation about it. It was more like, here's the facts, here's what we found, and there's a couple ideas, and then we kind of moving on. Yeah. I want a little bit more of a discussion here, back and forth on this, because we know for a fact, that people who fought in World War II and their kids, the baby boomers, they went to school and paid very low amount of money to actually attend college, right? Yeah. Meanwhile, their grandchildren, or great-grandchildren, or I guess in some cases children, like they are attending college at a astronomical price point. I mean, the average person getting just a bachelor's degree from a local university, all right, in the United States, is going to pay somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 over the course of their academic career. That's 4 years of school. They're going to pay
and that's on
a third
for 4 years.
I know it's on the. I'm lowballing this number. Okay?
You're lowballing. I'm
lowballing it to be.
I'm
lowballing it to be reasonable because I think that there are many opportunities for school, right? Mm-hmm. There's a ton of different colleges. Grants. Yeah, exactly. There's colleges, there's grants, sports programs. There's a whole bunch of reasons for different schools and stuff like that, and how much money it's going to cost you at the end of the day. But I'm just going to say, you don't have any major scholarships, you don't have any major grants. You basically come from a middle class, or maybe slightly lower than middle class, family foundation. You're barely getting by kind of person, okay? I would say a reasonably large number of the population. You can kind of have a say in where you go. And so it's going to have a varying cost. But you're not wrong. I mean, if you go to a major or a prestigious institution, you could be looking at easily $100,000 or more.
That's not even including out-of-state tuition either.
Yeah, that's also if you're out of state too. So
that's about 50% higher.
Yeah, which is just gross, to say the least. Here's the thing. My opinion of this is that if it's going to cost this much, then the education that you get should clearly be worth it. You should be walking away with the ability to say lavish, large words and be able to articulate points that can be very interesting and I would almost expect it to be something you find in a book, perhaps, or maybe your skills aren't in the verbal category. Maybe they're in the business sector where you're just a whiz, whatever it is you went to school for. You should be able to adequately show those skills. It has been my experience the quality of the education that you get seems to be highly variable from place to place. Not surprising. Yes, it is. I mean, for you, would you say that your education, from because you're working on a PhD right now, so you've gone through the steps, all right? You're also a professor who teaches subjects. So I mean, you have a side of this. I'm gonna ask a couple key questions. Number one.
Okay.
Do you feel that you get paid adequately for the services you provide? Keep in mind, we do not have your real name, so it's okay. You can be real.
Not at the moment, no.
Okay. Do you feel that the students that you look after receive a quality education based upon the services of the department? Not your individual thing, but just the way in which the department runs.
Also a no.
Okay. This is scaring me already because I'm you're a really good teacher. Just for the people.
You said it wasn't just me; it was my entire team.
Yeah. I know that. I just want to say this now, for the people at home. I was terrible at stats, god awful at stats before her. I now understand them roughly because of her. She's great, and roughly only because I'm an idiot, not because of her. Okay, but anyways, when it comes to like the system, do you think that like your department receives the funding that they need in order to do a good job, or are they lacking somewhere?
That's a little harder because I've never really looked at that budget, but considering my last workplace, I would say if they are not using it properly.
All right. Well, then let's take a look at the last place. All right.
Okay.
Okay. The last
Okay.
place is fair to say because you got a
All
little
right.
bit more like knowledge there. You're also not necessarily working for them, so there's zero chance of this coming back at him. That's you.
As long as I don't name places.
Yeah, we're not naming places. We're not naming names.
We're just gonna go past college.
Yeah, we're called a college, and we're gonna leave it at that. The same thing with
Yeah.
me. Like my experience is a
Yeah.
college. Although I will say, okay, I'm not gonna go there. For if you want me to,
stop while you're ahead.
if you want to know what I actually think about certain places, join our Patreon because if you do and you ask the question,
You'll get
I
the
will give you
uncensored
the
version.
legit fucking answer. And
You'll get the uncensored version.
yeah, it'll
The
be
one that won't get us in trouble.
It'll be the 100% uncensored version. It isn't. It won't even just be like it's safe for YouTube. It's like more like it's safe for like anyone because like this place. I mean like, but anyways,
Alright.
I'm not gonna go
Your
too
question?
far into that. Okay, so yeah, so my questions are like this, right?
Yep.
Do you think that like the faculty you worked with like were well-meaning, like they showed up to actually educate, not to just get a paycheck?
Yes. Sorry, English. I cannot speak it.
English,
Yes.
motherfucker, do you speak it?
No. Anyway, the colleagues I was
lose.
working with were very much.
Day, sir.
Good day. The colleagues I was working with were very much. They actually did want to help the students as much as possible.
Mhm.
At least those that I interacted with personally.
Okay.
And that was only about 5 colleagues, and that was just in my department.
Wow. Okay, but you only had 5 colleagues in your department.
No, I'm pretty sure there were like maybe 10 or 15, but I only
Okay.
regularly saw like 5. And I
Okay.
only regularly talked to like 3, 4 of them.
So realistically, you could only really confirm with any real degree of accuracy a quarter of the potential staff.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's just in one department versus,
Okay.
multiple.
What like when you see like the students, right, that you were working with, do you
Yes.
feel like that they were getting a quality education?
Mm,
Were they getting what they were paid for?
Not all of them, unfortunately.
Not all of them. What's the differentiating factors? Like, what was the thing that was?
Some of them had to deal with their own work schedules, which made it difficult for them to join lectures or join office hours and whatnot. Some of them even had things that would conflict with each other and which would halt their academic progress because preliminary courses were a thing, or pre-qualifications type of thing. Not to mention the way that the institution went about announcing things was not the best.
Yes, communication between programs can be problematic.
It didn't help that they canceled 3 sports programs without warning in the middle of the semester.
Wonderful.
After the transfer point, which meant students were floundering.
Oh boy, oh boy.
It made me so sad and so mad on the students' behalf.
Yeah, that just
Like-
seems poor management.
Yeah, especially since one of them was like a main sport that people would get scholarships for. So it's just like, what the heck are you doing with these students then? You brought them into the school on that program you just canceled.
I guess they don't have anything to do anymore, right?
Hello? It's just me being angry at my own institution because of how they treated this monstrosity.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I completely agree. Like,
Especially since it was a private school.
yeah, like, well, hey, that's the problem with private schools, though, right? Like, that's the risk you run. They can do whatever the fuck they want.
I hated it.
Well, and that's why you're not there anymore, right?
Yeah.
So,
think. Anyway.
Yeah. So when it comes down to like, there's certain elements, at least in my particular opinion, about the overall quality of an education that I'd like to kind of get to, which of course is its own individual topic, the quality of education.
It's such a pretty tree that
It's
we
a
need to
tree.
grow. We need to grow an education tree that actually survives.
Yes. So, when it comes down to it, like, I think that in my experience, I've seen faculty who are incredibly knowledgeable at their subject, but just horrible at, like, being able to proctor tests, at being able to actually, engage students in a way that
Mhm.
is fair and challenging at the
Oh, I
same
know
time.
that pain.
You know, like I feel like the model that education is designed around just doesn't work in the service of students anymore. Like like think about it like this, right?
Okay.
You to be a full-time student, you're roughly taking somewhere between 12 and 15 units.
Yes.
Right? And if I'm understanding the way in which things are supposed to work, then you roughly spend 6 to 8 hours per class on stuff. That means that, roughly speaking, you are spending 24 to 36 hours a week researching stuff for classes.
Yes. Supposed to.
At what point do you have time to go to work, to feed yourself, to clothe yourself, to clean yourself, to sleep? Like, at what point do you really have the time in the day to do that? Because
It might as well be a full-time job that
Yeah.
you're not getting paid for. In fact, you're paying for
you're
it.
paying exactly. I think that's kind of like my problem when it comes to the whole education system in a nutshell. Sure, I can understand, make your money, fine, okay. But I also think that we should we should really reevaluate the way in which we structure education, so that way there are less of a burden on the student, and the student can spend more time actually learning. If you're juggling a part-time or full-time, God, I'm sorry for those who do have to do full-time, which I'm sure there are many, many, many people out there. But having to
Been
juggle
sometimes.
work and school and all the life obligations, I have to imagine this person doesn't sleep. I have to imagine that this
There
person
is a yeah.
is a mess, disheveled, probably
There
has.
is
What? So, go ahead.
there is a reason that the term "no lifing it" isn't thing.
Yeah, that's true. But what kind of person, realistically, all right, like has the ability to keep that up for 4 years? Forget the master's, PhD programs, okay?
Just bachelors?
Just bachelors, all right? What kind of person has the wherewithal to make it through that under those
Way too
circumstances?
small of a percentage, I'll tell you that. Because
Yeah.
there are people, but they are way too small of a percentage.
See, here's the thing. I think that the reason why we see like people having terrible retention rates when it comes to education, I think it has to do with the fact that they're juggling this kind of crazy dynamic. Because I think about it, like the people who are the most successful in classes typically, and I'm not going to try and be rude about this, okay, but like many of my classmates, I can see the ones who perform well and the ones that don't, okay? And an extraordinarily large number of the ones who do well seem to come from upper middle class families where they don't have to work and they're just going to school. Like there's no job that they have to do. Maybe they have to pick up a summertime job when they're not in school, but like for the most part, like that was it. And the reason I bring this up is because I think when you look at like things like GPA and when you take into consideration like the ways in which we evaluate how good like a student is at actually like, covering the content, I don't think we can really use a metric like that and be really reliable. You could have a person who basically has no job, has nothing but school to do, and them basically find, ways of cheating the system to get ahead and get a high GPA. The same could be true of a person who's working and just trying to cut, but like they they have a slightly less GPA because they have less time to work on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you could have a student who has a high GPA who studied and worked real hard. But to be able to look at it on paper and be like, this is the GPA value by which we're measuring it, are you really looking at those people with any real clarity and going, okay, this person is clearly this because of this? I think they're just a name and a number and maybe an ethnicity. And then maybe because of, I don't know, certain laws, affirmative action comes to mind. Maybe like the more diverse they are, the more likely they get into the various positions because, oh no, we can't have a white male inside something. Anyways, that's more of a tangent that I'm not going to go into too. Well, you know what I'm saying, right? Like,
yeah, I know.
You look around an office and you're like, huh, most of the people in this neighborhood are definitely not this ethnicity. What's going on? Like, how do we have 90% of these people and like, why is there like one person out of 20 that's representing that group? It's like, what? I don't know. Like, honestly, like the whole notion of affirmative action to me is ridiculous. It's like you should pick the people who do the best job, not not anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. Tokenizing for tokenization is just not always worth it, especially in certain professions.
I completely agree. I mean,
like, you're not gonna. I would hope to God. I would hope that they don't do it for like medical professions.
I think they do.
Emergency. I know. I hate it.
Like, I honestly believe that like we're seeing this across the board. Like, go into your emergency room and find a person who's white.
I don't want to.
No, I'm serious. Like, just like if you go in there and just go find somebody who's like. I'm not trying to say white is the thing. I'm saying is like, it seems like certain groups are kind of discriminated
against. Certain demographics
against
get into certain jobs
easier than others. Like,
yes.
I don't
unfortunate.
Like it. Yeah, I don't like
and that's not good for the education aspect either.
No. I mean, like...
Because you're enforcing certain roles onto people that they might not be suited for either.
I agree, yes.
Gosh.
I don't know. I look at certain groups of people and I think they get groomed for certain like positions and like there's certain things like I'll give you an example. Like in the department that I am very much frequently around, there are certain people whom regularly appear on lots of the promotional stuff. And let's say that they are unique in representation in a very obvious way. And I think it looks good for the program to have that, so that way they are perceived as very inclusive and diverse. Even though it's very much not the case. And I'm worried that there are going to be people who are going to be tricked into that and believing that that's the experience, and then they get there and find out it's not, and it becomes a detriment.
Which affects the quality of the education and how much you get out of it.
It does. It also affects the funding for those programs.
It does.
If a bunch of people are like, "Hey, this is not what we signed up for," people are going to go, "That's a problem," and they're going to be like, "We're going to take a closer look." Yeah, and so I could see funding being pulled very easily. And to me, that's
what happened with my previous school.
Oh dear Lord!
Enrollment rate from one semester. The semester they dropped the 3 programs. They were looking at the enrollment rate for the next semester. Over a third of the students dropped.
That doesn't
and just went somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It's like, this is what happens when you did what you did.
Yeah. You can't cut funding and then expect, oh, wait a minute, we're gonna have the same stuff. It's like, no, something's lost in the translation.
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk about this for hours, but like, there's one element of the quality of education that I know for a fact that I'd really like to get to, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it, especially considering where you're working currently. Like, there is an element here. So, during the pandemic, we had online learning. We had
Yes.
Zoom things. There's asynchronous classes. There's all sorts of crazy shit, right?
Mm-hmm. As soon as we went into the pandemic territory, it was strictly online and asynchronous, then slowly moved into hybrid, and now it's a mix of all four.
Yeah, and you heard me complain. I'm gonna say something that's a little bit private, but like I don't care. Like it can be open.
Okay.
I don't give a shit. Last semester, I took a class where all of the assignments were graded by a robot, not even the
Ugh.
professor.
Oh yeah, I
And
remember that.
yeah, and so like when it comes to like being able to learn material and get, I would say, feedback that is reasonable from the expectations of the person who's teaching the course. To
Mm-hmm.
me, I think of it like you should at least be able to have a human conversation. You shouldn't be walled off by by mechanics and like other shit that has basically you have no connection to the person who's supposed to be teaching the content.
Mm-hmm.
And so it to me I feel like in the Zoom asynchronous formats of the pandemic and they continue on to this day in many aspects. And I think there's merit there. But I think the quality of education takes a nosedive. Like
It does.
I mean, like, who the fuck cares about like what anyone's trying to say in the reading when you can just take the quiz and if you're relatively familiar with formulaic equation like formulaic questioning, you can probably figure out the answer just by like looking at it for like a minute. It's not like it's terribly difficult to ascertain a multiple choice question usually, unless like the statements are just ridiculous. But the point I guess what I'm trying to get to is that like you currently work in an asynchronous environment. So
Yes.
from the educator side of things, what do you think is the quality of experience that you give, and what would you say is the pros and cons of that environment?
Mm. So personally, I'm kind of biased on it because it makes my job easier with the fact that all the lectures are already created and posted, all the grading is done, which leaves me
Hold,
with my.
hold on a second. I thought you weren't there for the paycheck.
I'm not.
Okay.
If you let me continue.
Yeah, continue. I'm getting an ask. Sorry.
So it leaves me to do my favorite thing, which is what I was hired for, which is the student interaction. The unfortunate bit is, with it being asynchronous, even if I've set office hours and, try to interact with students, half of them don't respond.
Oh my god. So you just like it's like radio silence.
It is like,
Is this thing
it's
broken?
yeah, pretty much, because emails, I do weekly check-ins once or twice a week and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I regularly check the community postings, and it's just like, at the same time, when I'm only checking them like once or twice a week, that seems to be all that any like set of students is posting. Like I've got a cohort of maybe 30, 40 kids. I shouldn't say kids, I know they're all adults. I've got a cohort of like 30, 40 kids, and I only see like 5.
Wow. Yeah, see, you know what I think about that? I have to, like, the first thought I have is, I wonder, do they even know how to communicate? I mean, like,
I pray.
well, you pray, but like, here's the thing, like take me for example, right?
Yeah.
Like, when it comes to social media, there's a reason I don't use it, right? And so, like, as a reason for me not using social media, we see like all sorts of like random things that pop up, right? And I have no way to be able to address those because I don't know how to fucking use any of it because I don't use it.
Yeah, fair enough.
And so like I wonder like if like let's say hypothetically, right, like you're utilizing like online stuff, like let's say you're using like Discord or Twitter or Instagram or anything like that to communicate.
Yes.
How the fuck, if someone doesn't use it, how are they supposed to interact?
Yeah, pretty much. So, into the current system, there's only 2 ways to get in contact with these students. It's either through the actual email that they've signed up with and the one they are given through the school, or it's through the community posting, which is part of their grade.
Oh, wow.
So, I do both. Whenever I create an announcement, I send it not only as an email to the entirety of the class, I put it on the community post as well.
Mm-hmm. Which makes
And
sense.
I still have like almost no traction.
Hey, don't worry. It's not like you have no traction. You have 5. Like,
I have
it's all right.
5,
It's
and
all
it
right.
takes a little bit. Like,
Oh man, you got
I,
nudge.
I, I, I want to interact with these kids, but
Adults.
it's just like, yeah. But it's also the pros and cons of having the only pro I can really think of for having this thing be asynchronous is they get to do it around their time schedule. They're not trying to fix their schedule around my schedule.
Mhm.
They're trying to fix it around their own schedule.
Which makes sense. And maybe you guys' schedules aren't lining up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like that's one of the best pros that I can think of because they do all of that. This program is made for the working class
Yeah.
for like full-time jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So this program was specifically built to accommodate for them. So that's the best pro I can think of for asynchronous courses. But it's just like the student interaction or the student-teacher interactions are just abysmal.
Which is not surprising. I mean, like, it makes total sense to me. Why not have a class Discord? I mean, they probably do. And hi, Kyle. Well, welcome to the show. When it comes to certain elements, certain questions, I think there are many things we could ask. But the one thing that I would like to talk to you at least briefly about before we move on to the next one is, many schools are dropping certain requirements for grad school.
Oh yeah, those.
And I know for a fact that, seeing as you're like near the end of a PhD, you've taken some of those requirements.
Multiple.
Yeah, multiple of those requirements. And I'm just curious, how are your feelings surrounding like having to, you went through all these hurdles, but someone who comes up 5 years behind you doesn't have those same hurdles.
Again, I'm going to be biased. I am announcing that now. I will try to give it from as objective as I can. Attempt. So, with the fact that they are dropping these requirements, it does mean that more students are actually able to apply for these programs because the thing is with these extra tests, you typically have to pay for them. And if you're trying to, get grants and scholarships to attend the college to begin with, there's not always a waiver for you to use to just try it anyway. So it does allow for higher student enrollment. However, the thing that I don't like is that the students coming in may not have a solid foundation of the thing they're going in for. So, for instance, the GRE, the graduate requirement exam, is essentially a undergraduate college version of the SAT, which students used to have to do or may still do to get into undergraduate school. So, the GRE is meant to test your just knowledge and see if you are at a level that passed bachelor's.
Okay.
It's going to move into master's or PhD because they want you to have some solid foundation of you've been through college before.
Oh yeah, that's right. What were those words again? I forgot.
So that would at least give some solid foundation of you have these basic or ish skills that you need to just survive in college to begin with. The GRE subject tests are specifically for majors where you have to have a solid foundation in that particular subject in order to succeed, rather versus getting in there and playing catch up for the first 2 years when you're supposed to already maybe only play catch up for maybe the first year.
Oh dear Lord.
Because the PhD program's already long enough. You don't want to extend it by having to play further catch up.
That makes sense in a lot of ways. I mean, here's the thing. I kind of disagree with you on some things, to be perfectly honest. Like, actually, more like, okay, so, like, we've had this discussion before. I mean, my prefaces for the audience. We've had this discussion before, and in that discussion, I came up with, there were some things I disagree with. She didn't mention the thing that I disagree with the most.
To be honest, I probably don't remember what you disagree with the most.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll leave it with this statement, okay?
Okay.
I think it's important, very important, for higher education to be accessible to a wider range of people, because the environment in which we are currently living requires higher education to be obtainable in order for people to have a decent quality of life. Most people who do not go to an academic institution are living at the poverty line. They're living paycheck to paycheck, or worse than that. And their ability to access healthcare, like decent food, being able to pay for small niceties, maybe even go on vacation, those are all gone to those types of people. And a lot of people look at those lavishness and those luxuries as, oh, hey, those are things that you don't need to have. I would argue you do. Like, I think you do, because people need the ability to have something to look forward to strive for. And when you can't, it is incredibly difficult to be able to muster getting up and just doing what you need to do in that day. I also think that because of the nature of the current economy and the job markets, so many of the industrial jobs, like the easy stuff, as it were, those aren't around as prevalently in the States anymore. I mean, they still exist. They're there, here and there, but like for the most part, most of the jobs require like some sort of technical skills that you need to go get a degree to get. And as such, I think that it's incredibly important that we acknowledge this, because it's something that you don't hear about too often. You hear people talk about parts of it, but you don't hear the reasons behind the whys. And I think the whys are what make this topic important. I look at some of the messages Kyle has here, and I there's one of the messages that talks about how, like, essentially it's like a redo of high school and middle school.
Oh, the one where
it's basically
Kyle
a
believes
daycare.
we need to redo the two levels.
I agree. I honestly think that the entire education system needs to be restructured. I think that realistically speaking, we talked about this in a previous episode, but effectively speaking, the K through 12 system was designed with the sole purpose of creating industrial workers. All right. And the point behind that was that, like, okay, you went through all this schooling, so clearly you can show up and you can be told what to do. And you can follow a task to a reasonable degree of accuracy. The idea behind college institutions really got proliferated really right after World War II, with essentially people wanting to learn new skills and develop trades and businesses and things like that, because the economy was booming. All right, people had disposable incomes and people wanted to make money. And we do live in a capitalistic society. So I think that, like, when it comes down to it, we're experiencing a downturn from that. And I think we need to accommodate that particular thing. So I think a restructuring makes complete and total sense. Now, has that structure existed before that? Absolutely. But did it get kind of altered and changed because of those particular events? Absolutely. But if you want to hear more about that, revisit the previous episode, or send us a message, via email at awickedparley@gmail.com, and we will address that particular question and discussions. And should you want to have an actual discussion about any of these particular things, you can, of course, reach out and we can get connected, and you can send an email, and perhaps we can invite you on as a special guest for discussing this particular topic in the future. Definitely looking at you, Kyle. Okay, so with that being said, I want to move on to one last topic of the night. And I think that, like, this topic is important, and I want to talk about student well-being. And the reason why I think student well-being is so damn important is because it's going to affect everything from academic success to retention of knowledge, to the ability to perform well both in and out of campus life. One of the most obvious things that does not get discussed nearly enough is the fact that we look at the amount of time spent actually in campus facilities in comparison to how much they cost Okay? Like, do you need to have an artisan designed library with a bunch of like architecturally shaped odd little like nooks and crannies and bizarre windows with specific artists coming in and designing some bizarre shape that
Bizarre
people are like,
building in general.
yeah,
I'm
like
talking about UC
yeah.
San Diego.
The clam shape thing.
It's not even supposed to be a clam. That
No,
library was supposed to be books on top of a hand.
yeah, it's the point I'm saying is that like I think that like you could build a structure for much less that isn't exactly super eye catching, but is utilitarian and cut the cost and save the students, a whole lot of headache, less charge. Or you could design the space to accommodate the needs of the students by actually asking the students what they actually need and then support and facilitate it. I think that too often colleges are just kind of behind the ball when it comes to what the students actually need. And so realistically, like if you were a college student, let's say in 2010, all right, and you're a college student in 2020, well, let's ignore the pandemic. Let's say 2019. Then I think that like if you're the expectations you'd have would be met maybe in 2019 as a 2010 student, but theoretically you would have graduated and never seen any of the improvements.
Yeah.
One of my previous colleges I went to that I graduated from with multiple degrees was Sierra College. It's a junior college, and I remember the parking being just horrible. I used to call it like parking in the Kalium Galaxy, where I'd be like parking on it'd be like a trek, like to just get into class because of how far away I had to park, right?
Goodness gracious.
And then when I visited the campus relatively recently, and I saw that they had a parking garage, I'm like, man, where was this when I was going here?
Where was this before? This would have been so helpful.
Yeah. And I'm sure that probably in a couple of years, they're probably going to need another parking garage because they'll have met capacity because it's a fantastic campus. But it just goes to show that like improvements happen over time, and the improvements that affect the students' lives in the now very rarely actually affect those students. They usually have to suffer through without until later on. So my point is like, let's take the image that we have saved here, for instance, right?
Yes.
Those are bookcases, are they not?
Yeah.
Does anyone think that a honeycomb cellular structured bookcase is sensible or the best usage of the space?
Not quite, no.
No. So like who the fuck designed this? Designed it to be eye catching. They were doing it for aesthetics. Is that the correct usage of the student? Like, does that make the student happy? I could argue both ways. I could see a point, but I agree with your not to you thing, because not to me either. I would rather have whatever money that went into that budget, go go get a suitable bookcase and then go save the money and go spend it on something that they're going to care about.
Like actual material.
Sure, yeah. I mean, one of my other big complaints I have is the fact that like you go to a library on a campus and there's like how many books? A couple, 1,000 maybe. Where if you'd gone there 10, 15 years ago, you would have seen literally hundreds of thousands of books. It's like it's called a library, not called everyone's on their computer at a table. Like,
not a computer workshop.
Yeah, I mean it's a completely the way they use space. I just feel like it isn't appropriate. And I think there's a disconnect, like honestly, a real disconnect between the people who are in charge, the people who teach, and the people who essentially are supposed to run interference or communication between all these lines. Like I think that somewhere along the way, people just got like, I want more money. We're gonna make college a business, and we're gonna be making money for that. And and whenever something has to get cut, it's getting cut at the expense of the students. Oh, we'll charge the students more money next year for that, so we cover the expense. It's like, that's stupid. So
it's like you dum-dums.
Yeah. I know tonight's episode was a little long.
Just a wee bit.
Just a wee bit. And I want everyone to know also, Rose, had a little bit of an oral injury. Bit some food, so she hasn't been able to talk super much, but
yeah, bit my tongue biting food. Gosh darn it, and it's right against my tooth.
Yeah, she's been like really being a champion. I want everyone to
being a little trooper.
Yeah, thank you for hanging in there. If you'd like to see us discuss more, we could easily talk about this several dozen times. It's been fun. We are going to be doing another Twitch live stream tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you want to come check us out there, that'd be great if you want to support us. If not, then thanks for watching. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out and have yourself a great rest of your night. Later, everybody.